Hey, deserving listeners. So in the last episode about sister wives, I had an interview with Christine, a former member of the AUB, the religious group that the sister wives family is from. And after we recorded that interview, Christine emailed me and said, "Oh, I forgot to say this about the AUB." And I thought, "Oh, wow, that's really good information. I'll try to sprinkle that in a future reaction video." Then Christine would email again, and I was like, "Oh, that's another really important bit." And there were a number of emails, and I thought, how am I going to incorporate all this great information into the reaction videos? And then I thought, hey, let's just do another interview with Christine, and I will just have an addendum at the end of the interview. It'll just be another 15 minutes or something. But when we recorded the interview, the second interview, it went on long enough because there was enough to get into that I thought I should just have a second episode that is an interview with Christine. So let's go to that interview. So Christine, welcome back to the YouTube channel. You said that Black people are not allowed in to the AUB. They are not considered worthy to hold priesthood because of choices they made in the pre-existence. We are taught that when Lucifer defied God, there was a war in heaven. Those who chose to follow God are the white people. Those who chose to follow the devil are now denied opportunity to ever have a body. And those who didn't choose a side are punished with the mark of dark skin. It's become tricky now, though, because of genetic testing. As long as you look white, you should be okay, though. When you say that Black people aren't allowed in, but then you also say they're not considered worthy to hold the priesthood, are those one and the same?
I know there was a Black family, like I heard about a Black family that was kind of investigating, like interested in possibly joining. And I guess they tried to be as nice about it as they could, but they were like, we just think that it would be a bad environment for you and your children because, like, the men are the only ones who are allowed to hold the priesthood. And so the men in that Black family wouldn't have been allowed to, like, exercise the authority of God. And so they basically told them, like, we're not telling you can't, but, like, it wouldn't be a great environment for you and your family because you're not going to have the same opportunities in this church that you might have in a different church. So
they would be allowed to join the church, you're saying, but they wouldn't be allowed to hold the priesthood.
Or really awkward for them to even be part of it.
How so? How so? Because like the church I grew up in, all the men were not in line to become the priest or the minister, the leader.
Oh, okay. So every man, like man in the AUB, as long as you haven't like committed any massive sins and you're repentant, you're following like the covenant path, and all that, every white man is worthy to hold the priesthood, assuming you're baptized and all that. But as a Black man, you would never be considered worthy. So
now, when you say hold the priesthood, does that mean they become the minister or the leader?
No, not at all. They can like pass the sacrament during church. They can give people blessings of healing and comfort. They can, and that makes them like worthy to be like receive revelations from God to lead their family. I'm pretty sure that you would be allowed to have multiple wives if you didn't have a priesthood.
That's interesting. So in my language, in my frame of reference regarding religion, it's almost like every family is its own church, and then all those different churches come together in a congregation that is overseen by a leader of a number of churches.
I guess that's one way of looking at it. But the priesthood, as we understand it in the AV and in Mormonism, is just the power to act in God's name.
So the next email you sent, Christine, was interesting. You said that there's a lot of pressure to have as many children as you physically can. That's a very interesting phrase, as many children as you physically can, because
As many as your body will give you. Yes.
Because souls are waiting for bodies in the pre-existence, and Christ can't come back until everyone has had an opportunity to be born and have a body. Also, every soul who enters the body of someone who's in the AUB is a soul that didn't go into a wicked family, you said. For a lot of families, this teaching led to poverty and food scarcity because people are having way too many kids for their resources. And you also said that the Brown family struggled financially before the show began.
That's what I understand. It could be a rumor, but that's what I've heard too. And I wouldn't be surprised because we're taught that, like, don't wait for money to have kids. The Lord will provide, just have all the kids you can. That's what the Lord would ask you to do it if he didn't have a plan, so just do it. But in my family, I personally didn't go through this, because I think it is my mom had food stamps so the first wife's kids, what we know to the government, it looks like she's legally married and she has a husband who's already surviving. And so, but for my mom, it looks like to the government that she's a single mom with a massive amount of children. And so we got food stamps. So we had access to food. But their mom would go get like expired food and like rotten fruit and stuff. And I didn't know this until much later, like once we were all adults, but apparently there was a lot of jealousy and like hurt that there was food at our house and not their house, and stuff like that. But it's so funny that, there's always jealousy and feelings. And it's interesting because I always thought that they had things that we didn't. I had no idea that I was always going on because they had, as the legal wives, they also had like more access to like better insurance because I was tied to my dad's work. And so I couldn't see in school because I really needed glasses and I couldn't, but I was too irresponsible. I took break, from losing them. And our insurance was like the crappy one that every family gets. And so they would pay for one pair of glasses a year and they want to favor contrast. This is cosmetic. Anyways, my siblings, my dad's first wife, they had like braces and stuff, that we could never afford. So there's always like those dynamics.
Yeah. Well, if the families were allowed to have children at the pace they wanted to, it might have been very, very different, even in a polygamous family, right? And this also makes me wonder about Mary on Sister Wives. And of course, you and I could only speculate, but based on what you know, and don't spoil anything because I'm only about halfway through season 4, if you remember anything. Up until reading this email, watching Sister Wives, I'm thinking that when Mary talks about how she's sad that she could only have one kid, I am interpreting that through my cultural lens, which is, well, clearly she just really wanted more kids. Everyone has a sense of how many kids, if at all, that they want to have. And for her, she wanted more. We don't know how many she would have wanted naturally, but she clearly wanted more. However, when I hear this, I just wonder how much of her desire to have more kids is a part of her own want, or is it indoctrination into this group? And of course, our culture is influencing women to go against perhaps what they would really want some of the time. But when I think about this, I think, well, as a woman, if I were a woman in this group, I would feel like I had not only an obligation, but also kind of like a superpower to save souls from pre-existence. I have the ability.
And a responsibility, like it's a duty though.
Yeah, right. So not only do I have an obligation, right? I'm pressured internally and externally, but also what a power that you have as a woman. You have the ability to essentially be the escape door from not only pre-existence, but also to the possibility of entering into a wicked family where you might end up going to hell or not enter heaven. But also, you have the ability to work at doing things to bring Christ back to us all, which is
is it okay if she's
absolutely
here?
yeah. I mean, do you are you sure you want her to be on YouTube?
You want to put on TV? I don't know. Of course, a child can't consent.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you, but
I think it's okay. I think it'll be all right. In the cases of you hearing. You want to say hi to my favorite? Remember this guy that mommy watches on YouTube? I think that's probably, she does see you on TV too, so she's probably like, what are you talking about?
We could only speculate as to what Mary would feel.
Oh, I mean, I can only speculate, but I can probably basically guarantee you that she probably feels badly that she couldn't bring more children to the earth, like that there are so many souls waiting, and she just wishes that she could bend the vessel to bring more of them here. I'm just sure because Mother's Day in the AV was always really, really hard for the moms that, especially the ones that didn't have any kids. It was just like, because that's like your biggest thing as a woman in the AV. Like that is the thing that the Lord has called you to do. Is that's to be a mother. Yeah, if you can't be a mother, like in the AV is so hard on women. Like. They'll get like suicidal and they just feel so bad that they're just like their body just failed them or something. So it's really sad.
So the next email you sent, which I found to be really interesting, is you said that many of the young girls were encouraged to ideally be third wives, like what Christine was talking about.
I didn't know that. I just learned that.
You said that because when you establish 3 wives in a family, in a polygamous family, that is considered a quorum. And you say that once you have a quorum, then you have secured your place in the celestial kingdom. I assume the celestial kingdom is heaven. Is that?
It's like the heaven of all heavens. Like there are 3 heavens, but that's the best
one. Okay. And then you say, I knew that having 3 wives is the ideal, but you say, I didn't really know that women were encouraged to go for that number 3 spot for that reason. Because you're saying that if you can be that third, then you will be essentially, it's sort of like in a relay race, you're the one that gets to take the baton across the finish line, Yeah. And then you say, and I hadn't considered that Christine might have wanted to be a third because that way she wouldn't have to risk not making it into the celestial kingdom, being in a family that didn't have at least 3, right? Because if you're 1 or 2 wife, you don't know if there's going to be a third. Whereas if you seek a family that already has 2, then you're good. It's like,
you're good to go.
You're okay. And then you say that if you have 3 wives, you go to the celestial kingdom. And if you have 5 wives, you'll be a prince in the celestial kingdom. And if you have 7 wives, then you'll be a god in the celestial kingdom. I've had clients over the years who are different versions of Mormon, and I've heard similar kinds of rankings, not with polygamy, but there's different versions of heaven and there's different levels of power and being a god, but it's based on the merit you earn on earth in terms of how pious you are and the works that you do for the church, that kind of stuff.
I guess that does bring up one important point is that no matter how many wives you have, like you only qualify for these things if your wives live in harmony, like if your family lives together in harmony, And that's kind of a mess too, because how you define like what's in harmony. And so like for some people, like in my family, there was a term that we would throw around called plural monogamy. And so we were like, well, that's like cheating when each wife has their own house and they're like, don't need to talk to each other and they're not even friends. So we would say that's like plural monogamy. That's cheating. Like, how would that, because you're not like living in harmony.
Meaning that everyone isn't living in the same house and coexisting all the time. There's no separation.
Yeah. Not that in my family, it was like you want to live in the same house, but you can't just like ignore each other and never hang out and not be friends. Like, because there are definitely families that the wives, they pretend they sort of don't exist, they live in their own house and they just don't and they just, and I would probably be, honestly, it'd probably be the easiest way. not have to associate with the woman who's sitting with her husband,
Yeah. Another email that you sent, you say that you had just watched the episode where I commented about Robin possibly kicking that dog. And you said that two prophets ago, so two leaders of the AUB, the prophet Lemoyne or Lemoyne Jensen?
Lemoyne
Jensen.
Yeah.
He taught that pets and animals should never be allowed into the home. So what else did you learn or absorb from the AUB regarding dogs as pets?
Just that I don't know, I think but it's so funny, the man that leads these, it's just that they kind of just go off on tangents of whatever thing their brain is stuck on. They're like, I don't like that. I'm making that a rule for everybody. You can't do that. Like, I feel like the most recent one I heard was like, bikinis for babies are bad. Like, babies should not be wearing bikinis. Like, it's just like the weirdest, most random things they get stuck on that they're like, that shouldn't be a thing. So anyways, he had an experience, I guess, where I think he had been in a home where someone had a dog or something, but either way, the dog was disturbing the prayer. He was distracting during the prayer, and that was offensive to him. And he said, pets, animals in the home are disruptive to the Lord's spirit, and they don't belong in the state's homes.
Yeah. This is what happens when you have a high control group that allows for the leaders or the leader to just do whatever they want, like with the IBLP, right? IBLP?
That's the one that Duggars were in? Is that the one?
Yeah, from the Duggars, IBLP. That's that.
Yeah.
So that group was led by that guy. I can't remember his name now, but he was apparently really into the sort of Little House on the Prairie look for the ladies. And it became part of the dogma that you
have to be the dress code.
Yeah.
Because that's what he likes.
Today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. So a lot of us, including myself, we really wish that we had more time in the week, There's always so much to do. And if we don't watch it, we might pack our entire day with obligations, never taking any time for ourselves. I mean, think of all the things you would do if you had more free time, like going to lunch with a friend, or even, God forbid, going to therapy. But it's kind of a catch-22, because without therapy, we might be putting ourselves on the back burner, never allowing ourselves to take time for ourselves, to focus on us and our needs. So sometimes we just need to take that leap and allocate that 1 hour a week to therapy, that 1 hour a week just for us. Well, one place you can find a therapist is at BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, it's definitely worth giving a try. So never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Kirk today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk. So another email you sent, you said, a lot of people left when Lynn Thompson was called to be the prophet after Lemoyne died, because multiple daughters and family members of his came forward saying that they had harmed them sexually. It was pretty sad how many people discounted their stories, though, saying either they had no proof or that it was questionable that they only came forward about the abuse once he was called, I think meaning once he was called to become the prophet. They believed it was basically persecution, and because it's taught within all Mormonism that the Lord's church will be persecuted more and more the more righteous that you become, so basically any opposition is considered persecution. So you remember when Lynn Thompson became the leader of AUB and there was the controversy.
And just in general, like the Lord's church will always be persecuted, because as surely as there's a true church, there's an adversary who's trying to actively tear down that church. And so,
and a lot of religious groups will use this. And I think part of it's probably on the up and up, in terms of unfair treatment from the larger society or something. But on the other hand, it's a very convenient perspective when there is...
Yeah, that's what any opposition is, just persecution. Yeah.
Any opposition that challenges the power structure can just be framed as persecution and influence from the devil or something, right?
Yeah, that was really sad that, a lot of like this man's daughters like were saying these things, and I just thought that was really sad that people would discount that, because I'm like, oh, that's so convenient that you would, come forward now. But it's like, well, of course, they don't want this man to be leading an entire organization when there are people, so many people there, they have full power and influence over is a whole congregation. I mean, it makes sense that they want to protect those people. It's not because they're trying to oppose the church. And it was also upsetting if it would say, oh, well, there's no proof of that. Like, are you documenting your dad abusing you? I mean, and I feel like the amount of people saying it should have been proof enough. There was a lot of people saying these things. So
yeah, it's classic. It happens almost every time someone steps forward along these lines. Those two tactics will get used in addition to others. And it's just a way to, retain the power structure and the patriarchy that is written into the rules or in the dogma of the AUB, but also exists in the broader culture. Yeah. So were you in AUB at the time that this happened?
I was kind of on my way out, but yeah, I remember it really well.
So the last thing that you emailed me, and you said that this was the most important thing that I needed to know, is that it is not required for the current wives to consent to the marriage of any of the consecutive wives. Why did you want me to know that in particular?
So I feel like, I used to say a lot at the time, like, well, live and let live, if it's among consenting adults, then that's, that's something. I need aside from the indoctrination of the children. So that's kind of, it's tough. But I found out later that it's not necessarily consensual for the current wives. Like, they don't necessarily have to choose it. And it doesn't happen all the time. So I'm not saying this is like happening in every case, but there are cases where the wife is saying, no, I don't like doing this, and I can't do it, I don't want to. And the wife says, and then the husband will say, well, I'm the one with the priesthood authority in this family, and I've been called to lead this family, and I feel like this is the right thing to do for the progression of our family. And with the approval of the leaders, if he talks with the leaders and they agree, oh yeah, your wife is not in harmony, it sounds like you need to go forward without her consent, then they will go ahead as she does that. There is not a practice in place that all of the wives have to be present and have to consent to any consecutive marriages. And that, to me, is the biggest reason why the AUB is a problem.
Yeah. Compared to all the other things, why do you think that harm is the most significant?
Well, because I think consent is key. I mean, as long as if everyone's okay with it, then it's like, okay, well, then it's not hurting anybody. But that does cause a lot of harm when a woman already has, say, 9 children, and her husband decides to take another, and she has no financial power because she's home raising all the kids, and her husband takes another wife without her consent. So that's less cheating, because like she didn't say it, you could say that. And then she's in a position where she can't really leave because she has all these kids and she's financially trapped. That's unethical.
Yeah. And from my experience and from the research, you could have a situation where someone could not consent, but eventually, because they're powerless, they trick themselves into believing that they're okay with it.
Oh my gosh, it's so ironic that you said that, because yes, there have been women who, and it's embarrassing to be the wife not in harmony, so they'll, they feel like they've been bullied into it anyways, and so they'll end up showing up to the wedding and consenting, because it was going to happen whether or not they consented anyways, but they wanted to like save face, they don't want to be like that wife, and there is the family. So yeah, they'll kind of try to talk themselves into it. And sometimes they can't. Later on, they're like, I wish you never did that. I can't talk myself into this. I'm not okay with it. So,
yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah. And that really adds to my understanding or my interpretation of sister wives. And when we hear that Mary and Janelle, at least, are consenting. Maybe even the narrative is that they were the ones that were encouraging this to happen, to marry Robin. We can't know for sure if that is true.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case. I like want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but it's possible it could have been, because it has happened many times. My grandpa, he married his, not even my great grandpa, like my grandfather, married my grandma was his first wife, and the way the story is told is that she was like, okay, I could never handle that if you were to say otherwise. So if you're going to do that, don't tell me about it. And so he did. And that story is, and she didn't leave him. Like she was really heartbroken and sad, but she like pulled through, and she figured out how to be good friends with her sister wife. And they tell that story in AUB like they're both some kind of heroes. Him for like risking his marriage to do what he felt like was right, and her for like swallowing her pride enough to like love the woman that her husband had brought into the family. So, and they talked about that a lot at her funeral. And I just, the whole time, I was just like, if there's an afterlife and she is there, she'd be so pissed. Like, so I feel like, what? What was I like this all? So much, you know, and that's what's sad to me is like people sacrifice their whole lives for these things. And I think by the time you find out or start to realize that it's not true, like you're kind of starting to deconstruct that indoctrination, it's like you have to rewrite your entire reality, your whole identity, everything you've given anything for. And so it's just too hard. It's just easier to convince yourself that you're right.
Yeah. When I studied the IBLP and other groups like this, I was struck once I really absorbed and heard the stories from people. I really just felt so bad for a lot of these people, because you're born into a system that from the outside you can say like, well, you know, you can always leave, and sometimes people do. But from an early age, you have these urges, you have these desires that you're told are wrong, and you learn at an early age that you have to constantly be suspicious, if not outright just get rid of, try to suppress who you are and what you want, because it's wicked, it's wrong, and it's just easier to put yourself on the back burner and toe the party line and follow the dogma. And so you enter into adulthood and you have these expectations that you're going to be in a polygamous family. And this applies to the men as well. And even if you don't want to do it, you don't necessarily even have the tools to push against it, because you gave that up a long time ago. You don't even know who you are. You don't know what you want. So you might as well just do the thing that causes the least amount of problems.
Like surrender your will to the Lord's will. That's kind of the idea. Yeah. And men are absolutely as much bit of lot as women, you know, like they're taught since they're teeny tiny the same as we are. So.
Yeah, and it just makes you wonder with Cody and Mary, because you see those early pictures of the two of them, you know, they're a young couple, and they seemed, the story is that they connected and they were in love. And you just wonder what life could have been like if they just were allowed to be like the way they wanted to be, which might have been a monogamous family, you know? Would things have been different?
I mean, Cody's a convert. So I feel like that is what he wanted, because he wasn't raised in it like, you know, like Mary was, right? Like she was raised in it. So for her, it's like, I have to do something I have to do. But for him, like he joined later. So it seemed like for him, it was more of a choice. Like that's what he wanted. Like, oh, that sounds like an opportunity. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, the way that up until midway through season 4, the way that they narrativize all of the adults, the way that they tell the story, they make it seem like Cody was not really driving that move to become a polygamous family. They made it seem like it was more a choice for the women. Do you believe that to be true?
I hesitate to think that if Cody had said, Mary, maybe let's just, the two of us, just not take any more wives, like, I don't know, I'm speculating, but I kind of doubt that she would have been like, no, we have to, like, let's take more wives. I don't know. I can't know that. Maybe she would have, but I also just don't believe for 1 second that Cody would join a church where you take more wives and then, like, not, you know what I mean? And then I'm sure he was very open to it. I'm sure he loved that idea from the beginning.
Okay. So the show might be propagandizing a little bit.
I feel like the women they're always, and I feel like the women are always so defensive of it, and they try to make it, like, paint it in the best light and everything. Like, I even think that her grandma's story, I wonder all the time if she straight up told my grandpa, don't you dare, and he did it anyways, and now she's, like, changed it to, like, well, I told him that is he did, then don't tell me, or, I always wonder that, because I'm like, why did you say that? Like, do it without without telling me, but, like, go ahead. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like I have seen things get turned around like that so many times, where they just change little details, but to make it, just sugarcoat it and make it look like it's not as bad as it is. So, but I totally know that Cody liked Robin. Like, it's not like Mary just saw Robin and was like, oh, I choose her. No, Cody liked Robin.
I'm just also, this is a side note, it would be exhausting as a man. I'm just thinking about myself, in that you're never not available. You're always available. So whenever you are socializing and there is a single woman around, you're open for business.
When I was active in the AUB, like, I couldn't go over to my married friend's house without it, like, maybe feeling like I'm here to spend time with your husband and you, and, like, sometimes it can create really awkward situations. And even now, and not in the AUB, but a couple of years ago, my cousin's husband, he wanted to sell me a car, and that he had, and so he was. I didn't know how to drive a stick, though, so he was showing me how to drive a stick, and we're buzzing around the neighborhood and everything like that. And he had to stop to pick up a couple of his kids, and the house that we're at, they're, like, looking at us and they're like, "Oh, hi, what's your," and everything, and we're both like, "Show us, like, this is that, this is." Like, he's just driving the car. But it's just like, as soon as we threw him away, I was like, what the hell are we doing? What's the read? He's like, yeah, they probably told people like Corey now or something. So, yeah, it's a little, yeah. You can never just be done dating as a guy. Yeah, that's.
Well, is there any other details or experiences that you wanted to share with the audience?
No, I think that was basically it. Those were the ones that I don't know, I guess. I'll probably, as I think, will still continue emailing you, unless you don't want me to say this.
It really fleshes it out. I have 14 more seasons to watch of this show, and your story and your knowledge and your experiences has really helped. I had suspicions about these kinds of things, but I didn't have any specifics. And if you look online, the reports are all over the place. So to hear from someone who actually was in this group is invaluable to me and the listeners. And a lot of people were emailing in or commenting, and they're saying, Kirk, you really have to learn about the AUB, because that is an important part of the background of this show.
It's so funny they don't talk about it on the show. They hardly ever talk. And I think it's out of respect for the AUB. They don't want to, like, say too much, because the AUB wanted no part of it, right?
Well, it's also a marketing decision, because if they said at any point, oh, by the way, we are adherents to a philosophy that black people are burned by God because they didn't, what is it? They didn't make a choice when it came to Lucifer. Like they were on the fence.
They didn't choose a side. They said we're not going to fight for God. We're not going to fight for Lucifer. We're not going to choose. And so, I don't know. That kind of takes God to be kind of an asshole too, right? Like, well, you didn't choose my side. You didn't want to fight. So
yeah, there's a lot of assholes around. And so I'm guessing that is a very important detail that they just don't mention on purpose. And if they start mentioning other kinds of details, it might lead to these other details that you're saying of consent for the women, of Lynn Thompson's allegations. So is Lynn Thompson, Lynn Thompson, is he currently the leader of AUB?
No, right now it's on his deathbed, like the next person in line was Dave Watson, and I learned this from watching a YouTube video that was put out by his daughter. She was interviewed by somebody without a crystal ball. She does react videos to Sister Wives, and she interviewed Dave Watson's daughter, and her name's Emily. And so Emily said that on his deathbed, people knew that he was next in line to be the next prophet, and so the prophet, the living prophet, can choose somebody else if they say it before they die. And so they're like begging him, like, choose somebody, name your successor. And he's like, I'm not gonna die. Well, he died. So it fell to Dave Watson. And according to Emily, a lot of people did leave. Again, there was another kind of like, they call it a weeding out. Like weeding out when people leave, it's because they weren't good enough to stay or whatever. So it's like we're all being refined to like the best people are in the AUD now, right? But anyways, there was another weeding out because a lot of people knew about Dave Townsend's abuse. It sounded like Emily was saying that he was physically abusive, like he would beat them. And they would like hide the younger kids so that the older kids would be the only ones that got beatings and stuff like that. But so anyways, he's the current prophet now. And I was really disappointed to hear that because it seemed like he's doing some good things, but he's just being like, trying to be a good guy now so that he can get a following.
What good things is he doing?
Well, so be excommunicated. I think it's embarrassing the way they do it because they like do it publicly where they're like, you're excommunicated, like in front of everybody. But anyways, he excommunicated some guys who their wives were coming to him and saying like, this is being an asshole to me and he's favoring the new wife or this specific wife or whatever. And then so then you're like, okay, well you can't do that. You have to be nice to all your wives, And then they'll be like, I can do whatever the hell I want. He's like, okay, you're excommunicated. So I thought that was cool. I was like, well, let's do it. That he's not putting up with people being jerks. So maybe that will be like an example to everybody that they'll stop.
There's two sides to that coin. On one side, the way that you said it, you are not approving of an asshole husband, but on the other hand, shouldn't people be able to choose who they want to be closer to and who they don't want to be close to? Like imagine for yourself if you had 3 or 4 husbands and one of them you just got along with better and you just wanted to spend more time with him, and the prophet comes to you and says, you have to spend equal time with each of your husbands, even though one of your husbands is a complete jerk face and you would have divorced him under other circumstances. Like that's a different way of, we don't know what the story was.
Well, I think it's generally in the group, I think it's generally like acknowledged that you're not supposed to like, obviously favor. Like you are supposed to spend equal time with all of your wives. Like an unspoken rule,
Right.
Not supposed to have favorites. And I think that's
from my outsider perspective, I get that. If you're gonna be in the system, then I guess that's generally more fair. But what if one of your partners is abusive, is harmful, and you would just rather not spend time with them?
I think in the AUB, they would men teach that you should approach the leadership and say, this person is abusive and harmful to me, and I don't want to be married to them anymore.
But I just think about for myself, if I just thought about the past 3 to 5 partners in my life, including my wife, and I just said, well, all 3 to 5 of those other women I married, and now I'm stuck with all of them, I'm just going to say that I would much rather spend a lot more time with my wife than those others, you know? And
I know it's hard, but that would, I think in the AUB, I mean, and I know it's like, you know, it's a perspective of like, you know, like being outside of the AUB, but I think it, like in the AUB, that would be considered like, maybe you should just not live polygamy, and you're gonna have a favorite.
Yeah. If that's truly an option available.
Yeah, it's kind of not also though, you know, because like, are you gonna get your family that? Yeah.
Right. Exactly. A detail about Cody, I forgot to point this out or to highlight essentially what you were saying, is that Cody's dad converted to AUB when Cody was, I think he said he was like 18 or 20 or something. And
yeah,
that meant that Cody was not indoctrinated into this. And so when he married Mary and then the possibility of marrying a second wife came up, you would think that someone like Cody would have the freedom to say, yeah, you know, I respect what you're doing, Dad, but this isn't what I was raised on, and this isn't really what I'm looking for. So you were saying essentially that because he did ultimately go along with, might have even been a primary driver of marrying Janelle, it's evidence that he wanted to do this, that this was something that he could have easily backed out of.
Yeah, I can't know that. I'm speculating, but I do tend to think that it's a certain type of people that convert to the AUB. Like, I feel like the people that are genuinely trying to do their best and like desiring righteousness, like those are the people that were raised in it, and people that are drawn to it from the outside. I think, you know, you have to think about like what's gonna kill for you, you know?
What do you think that would be?
Well, I feel like for my dad, I can't speak for Cody or anybody, but I mean, I guess I just have that bias, I guess, but like, it's just that you have a big ego. You think that you deserve to be surrounded by many wives and children, like, because you're the man in the situation, and it's like you're basically worshipped by all of these people. And it's like people that really enjoy the spotlight and all of that attention.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. If you're insecure and you were looking for a fast track for what looks like a boost to your self-esteem, then joining a group like this might be appealing to you.
Yeah. I mean, and that's my perspective, but I'm sure that's not always true, but I feel like I've seen a lot of examples of that. There are cases where that has happened.
Yeah. And I suppose if I thought about it, I knew about groups like this when I was young. And I'll just say at no point was I ever tempted to reach out. So thanks for coming back on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
At this point, I'm thinking I might just make this its own episode because it's long enough to exist as its own episode. So we'll sign off again, Christine. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself. Why should people take care of themselves, Christine?
Because you deserve it. You really, really do.